Alright guys, aside from this finale kinda not feeling entirely like a finale, we do have a renewed Caesar's Legion marching on New Vegas. We have a renewed NCR already occupying the strip. We have Phase 2 from the Enclave, whatever that means. Hank is officially out of the game for now. We have the NCR Ranger from the Fallout New Vegas trailer / intro reference, which was awesome. We have the coolest goddamn Pip-Boy of all time. It's black, it's beautiful, it's Enclave coded, it's awesome. Oh, and I almost forgot. Liberty Pride! Alright, so we start off with a cold open, with the Legion, finally closing the loop on their silly succession issue, which I know a lot of people have had their gripes with, how ridiculous it was, but at least it's been resolved. With what felt like a very accurate character moment for Caesar. There's no successor, essentially. He basically said, without me, there is no Legion. This had Macaulay Culkin's character hiding the truth and taking control of the Legion for himself, which is very, very fitting for the type of government that the Legion is. So, as we shift gears over to Cooper at the top of the Lucky 38, I did love House's speech here. By the way, Justin Theroux fucking kills it as House. Honestly, he's amazing. I honestly don't understand at all how anyone can say that, the way he plays House isn't perfect, that it's anything less than perfect. I love the way he does it. It started one type of way, right? It started with him playing a House that we've never seen before. We've never seen pre-war House. We don't know what he's like, right? So I feel like they had liberty there to make him less experienced than the guy 220 years later that we see here. But I just think that the House he's playing here that has the experience of Courier 6 and everything that happens in Fallout New Vegas. He's been shut down, assuming the Yes Man ending is the way things played out, which it seems like that's how it went. And then getting brought back online with the cold fusion diode here. I don't know. It just, I think he's perfect. But yeah, dude, my favorite part of the way he plays this character is seeing that pre-war House that we've never seen before and watching how his character has changed over, those 220-ish years.
There's only ever been one of them, so it would be fresh snow from a scientific standpoint.
To become the version in this episode, and he became much more like the man that we knew in Fallout New Vegas. It was just, I just thought it was brilliantly done. He had all that history carried in his performance, and then he opens with that, hello, old chum line that just, it was perfect. He did such a good job, man. As I'm sure it is with all of you guys that have played the game before, I loved his reference that he kind of sneaks in there to all the different Courier 6s that we've played, that have decided to not side with House and decided to kill him. He references all the ways that we could have killed him.
Years, my body became something of a target for wandering travelers with something to prove. I have been poisoned, shot, bludgeoned with a crowbar.
So it's kind of like a cheeky reference, right? Because he would never have been attacked all those different times. He would have been attacked once by one Courier 6. Honestly, dude, I think they have done such a great job this season of overtly or sometimes covertly implementing these Easter eggs into the season. We'll touch on that a little later in this video because there's some really great ones this episode. As the ghoul dons his Pip-Boy that House gives him, that kind of has House on board, and he heads down into the management vault, which does get revealed, officially to be owned by the Enclave and not Vault-Tec proper. As Cooper's moving through the management vault, he does end up saving Lucy again, but, he does continue on to go save his family, kind of leaving Lucy to decide how she wants to handle things with her dad, which we'll come back to in a bit. Cooper does go on to find out, what you probably already knew, and I definitely already knew. The princess is in another castle. He's got to go to Colorado and find her there, because she's definitely sure as fuck not going to be here. I don't even know. It has to be an end game thing for his character, because where else do you go with this character after he finds them? How are they going to react? His daughter and his ex-wife, we find out they're still very much close. How are they going to react to seeing him as a, ghoulified and all that kind of shit? So we're not going to see them anytime soon. We might not even see them in Colorado, but we'll have to wait and see. They might be dead. We don't know. I did think it was cool as fuck, though, that they are in Colorado. Most likely in the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, which is the headquarters of NORAD, the joint air defense between Canada and America. So yeah, it'll be cool to see, the Rockies and Colorado next season. We have seen the Cheyenne Mountain Complex before in Fallout Tactics, one of the later missions in the game. We do see that as a location. So we have seen it, but it was an isometric game, so we're not exactly, we get hints of how these things are in those earlier Fallout games, but, in the later games, we get a much better idea of what they look like, as in first person, seeing it up close, and in modern graphics and all that kind of shit. So yeah, it'll be cool to see that again. I'm sure that's where the vault is that she's in, this Enclave facility. So yeah, we'll talk more about that when the time comes. Honestly, dude, I loved Cooper's flashback narrative this season. It was just so fun to see more of the world pre-war, especially Vegas. That was definitely a highlight here. And yeah, I just appreciated that, like, the way we thought things had played out for Cooper, had way more hidden context that changes things in a very major way. Not only like, why his marriage actually ended, but then why he was labeled a pinko, why he is where he is when the bombs get dropped and he's like doing kids' birthday parties, as a cowboy and that kind of shit. So it's just cool to get this kind of hidden context that totally changes, like, oh, why his marriage actually ended. It's not what we thought. She's not, they didn't get divorced because we found out that Barb is this terrible monster. We found out that Enclave was behind it, all that kind of shit, right? And I'm excited to get even more context on why he ends up exactly where he is when the time comes. And just like the fact that Cooper's story is so much fucking sadder than we originally thought, right? The fact that he tried to make the right choice and, tragically gives Cold Fusion right back to the hands of the Enclave and then pays this terrible price for that, right? And like willingly letting his family go, to protect them from the government, from the Enclave, in his attempts to do the right thing that failed miserably, basically. Cooper's just really is a man befallen by tragic circumstances. His story really is a tragedy. So I hope by the end of the show, he gets a happy ending. I don't see how that really would happen, but I guess we'll see. We head back over to Maximus's perspective, fighting those endless waves of death claws in his sick as fuck power armor. I love that power armor. By the way, dude, the defensive and offensive weapons that suit, is equipped with are so cool. Like, it only reinforced my new obsession with this power armor set. And like, yeah, just, the rockets that he used to jump off the ground. And then, he fires these mortars over his shoulders, and he's got like, like a punch that like, it's almost like a shotgun punch or something. And he's got the blades all over and stuff. It's just such a cool power armor. All the mods that are on it, everything is they're awesome. It's hilariously pessimistic that the residents of Freeside are like already gambling on whether or not Maximus is going to win. Very, true to Freeside, very true to Vegas. I appreciated that. And then like Thaddeus joining in on the bet and then dropping that line, I used to make money for a living, had me cracking up. The first time I heard it, I was like, what the fuck does that even mean? Isn't that what everybody does? Isn't that what working is? And then I realized he did make money for a living. When he was at the Sunset Sarsaparilla bottling plant, he was literally making money for a living, which, he was taking the bottle caps off the bottles and literally making money. It's almost like a mint, like a money printing thing. So yeah, I don't know. That was just really funny. I love his character. There's people out there that don't like Thaddeus and think he's cheesy and doesn't fit the tone. I disagree with every bone in my body. I think he's so funny. His comedic chops, his comedic timing is so good. Same with Maximus. The comedy in this show is just so good, and I feel like it's just the right amount of it too to fit with Fallout. Fallout, the world is very pessimistic, especially the earlier games. The later games are a little more lighthearted, especially once you get into like 4 and 76. But I do feel like that pessimistic kind of awful world, especially Fallout 3 and New Vegas, is still intact here. But it's funny too. Like it's very satirical. It's definitely making fun of itself and making fun of the world in the 1950s and in this future version of the 1950s. So yeah, I don't know. I think they're killing it. I think his character's great. I think he fits in really well with the show. I think the comedy is awesome. And then when we cut to that NCR Ranger taking that shot with his 50 cal and like, obviously referencing that scene in the intro to the game, I was just so stoked. That was so cool. Like subtle fan service, it's what works for most adaptations when you're taking these games with maybe more serious worlds. But yeah, those subtle, fan service moments, references are usually what works best in these adaptations. But honestly, dude, in Fallout, I generally think the opposite is true. it's such an over-the-top franchise, and I think that like these overt member berries kind of Easter egg moments work perfectly here. In many other cases, they would not work well, and this show has its fair share of a more subtle references and kind of things, blink and you'll miss it kind of stuff too, which worked great. But like these over the top, like, oh, you fucking remember this shit. Yeah, we know you love this. Just eat that up. Yeah, I just thought it was so awesome. Like for a second too, I could have sworn it was going to be Courier 6. That might have been a little too hit you over the head. Remember this like kind of thing. I'm curious if you thought too that it was Courier 6 for a moment or if it was just me. But I was just like, oh my God, it totally could be him. But yeah, I think it's just probably just an NCR Ranger. If it ended up being Courier 6, I might have needed to change my pants. As Lucy and Hank, come back to the surface, come out of the management vault and have that final scene together. I thought overall that could totally be a fitting end to Hank's story. We could just move on to the Enclave proper and not have Hank be part of the story anymore. He could very well be back next season though, too. I could totally see that happening. Either way works fine, but honestly, this would be a very fitting end. I thought for sure that Lucy had chipped Hank, but it does seem like what actually happened here is that maybe Hank chipped himself. I'm not entirely sure what's happening. Maybe one of you has a better grasp on it than I do. But either way, he had control over the chip that was inside him. They had this kind of emotional last scene together before he, who he actually is, disappears. And I thought it was a nice ending to his character. If, whether it ends up being the end or not, we'll see. It's funny. There's some aspects of this episode that feel very season finale-y, right? There's others that feel like it's much more of a second to last episode, like a penultimate episode. A lot of this season felt like it was treading water early on, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm kind of two minds about the whole thing because the structure of this season was very similar, I guess you could say, to like a Fallout game, how a Fallout game is structured. It's a lot like a combo of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas' stories kind of shoved together, right? We start off, with our main quest to find Dad, very Fallout 3 coded. And then but we have to get to the New Vegas strip, Fallout New Vegas, right? To finish that quest. And there's that main quest kind of driving everything along the way. But along that way, we get distracted by a bunch of side shit, whether it's not necessarily, side shit for Lucy. Some of it is. But, we have like the Brotherhood of Steel stuff. It's a show, so we're jumping around to different characters, kind of taking it out of the first-person perspective that you would follow in a game. But we do go back to stuff, that relates to Lucy. Like we have, Lucy helping the Legion folks, in that hospital, fighting the Rad Scorpions, which was awesome. And then she gets captured by the Legion, et cetera, right? There's plenty of side shit that happens. But then eventually we do get back to wrapping up that main quest, more or less, right? So it's kind of funny the way everything was structured. It really was so much, it fits perfectly into what we know as Bethesda Fallout games. But while it works perfectly as a game, it doesn't necessarily translate perfectly to a TV show adaptation. Like some of those earlier episodes, while providing context to the wider world and since we've last seen it in Fallout New Vegas, it did feel very much like plot-wise, storyline-wise, we were spinning our wheels, kind of until we hit the pavement again late season. But yeah, dude, I'm legit curious to hear if it worked for you, that video gamey structure of this season, or if you felt like we kind of sidetracked too much, similar to how I felt. Just let me know. Okay, but dude, that black Enclave branded Pip-Boy was so fucking cool. It was so cool. Such a small thing, but like seeing it, like it was, it looks so good in black, and then having that little Enclave branded logo. It's funny that Enclave anything would be branded with their logo since they're like a secret organization. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was funny. It was interesting to see that whole vault storyline, that plot there, like starting to wrap back into the main plot, where we have the Enclave kind of putting everything together, right? I honestly didn't give much of a shit about that storyline, but where things ended up, I did feel like it was pretty interesting, with Stephanie and, her whole, being Canadian plot, and then like phase 2 and all this shit that we don't really know much about. That's very enticing to see where that goes next season. So what do we think phase 2 is exactly? Based on, everything that I understood about it, based on what Norm was learning about FEV at the Vault-Tec headquarters, It definitely seems like they might be testing, FEV on Vault 31 or 33 or whatever. I'm guessing that's what Phase 2 is. There's probably more to the plan. I don't really know, right? But I'm curious what you think too. Is it just FEV being flooded into the vaults and testing them? Feels kind of obvious. I feel like there has to be more to it if they're really, teasing this out. We end this season with a very fantastic nod to Fight Club. We have Max and Lucy. They're like back together at the top of the Lucky 38 after their little reunion. And they're looking out over Vegas with this kind of fresh war starting between the NCR and the Legion. Not over Hoover Dam this time, but the Strip itself. But Lucy's line about how she started a war, and we know that Maximus also started that civil war, it was pretty funny. I love that our main characters are out there starting wars all the time. And we have our fantastic little post-credits scene here. It starts with Quintus saying, there's civil war. The Brotherhood civil war is clearly still raging on. But then we have Quintus saying, in the third person, of course, perfectly suited to his character, Quintus the Unifier is dead. Quintus the Destroyer is born. Jesus Christ. He's such an arrogant bastard. Like, nothing about his plans before, when he was trying to, team up against the Commonwealth were unifying. It was a power grab, essentially. I'm sure there was elements of it that were true, that, they found this technology, but they won't really get to benefit from it. Being part of an organization is like that a lot of the times. You do this stuff for the betterment of the organization. It makes sense that you give it to the leadership. But yeah, like, it was very much not about unifying anything. It was just a fucking power grab. And since he kind of lost that whole plot, like, he's just kind of a bitter loser that wants to tear it all down now. But holy fuck, we get, Liberty Prime Alpha to be exact.
Mission: the destruction of any and all Chinese communists.
That's so exciting to see that in live action. I don't know if it'll be next season. I feel like next season it'll be them probably building it, right? And then like later on, maybe season 4, it gets utilized. But we'll see. Maybe there's a time jump in this next season. I could not be more excited though to see that in action. That's going to be awesome. All right, man. Another pretty good season of this show down. This episode, this season, like, definitely has its faults, right? Which I've mentioned all of them before. But honestly, I do think this show, all three of those things were a massive success. The season overall kind of dilly-dallied in the beginning, but I feel like it delivered in the end. Honored the games in, the best it could. Told us new stories and gave us new lore, new context that we didn't have before. I don't know. I just think overall it delivered. This season as a whole has me very excited for whatever it is that comes next in season 3. Couldn't come soon enough. I had so much fun covering this season. I can't wait to cover the next season. And, I'll have plenty more videos coming out about this show and other things too. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you thought of, this last episode, this season as a whole. Did it deliver for you? Did it honor, what lives in your head as what Fallout New Vegas is, what the Fallout franchise is? Very curious to hear what you think. We'll have a very respectful discussion in the comments, right? As we always do. This is a great community. I love it. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me on this ride. Like I said, we got plenty more to talk about over the weeks ahead. So I'd love a subscription if you would be so obliged. So thank you for your time, my friends. I appreciate you coming along on this journey. I know your time's valuable, so thank you for spending it with me. And I will see you in the weeks ahead. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.